Modern democracy and human rights are a historical glitch. They exist today because a dictator was too weak to execute his own son, allowing a fragile version of civilization to be born from a single act of royal failure. In the year 509 BCE, Rome was a monarchy governed by the sophisticated, mystical influence of the Etruscans. It stood on the precipice of becoming an unshakable global autocracy. Every freedom we take for granted is the accidental byproduct of this moment. By deconstructing the day the monarchy fell, we can see the cold, efficient reality that nearly dominated the world, and why it might be returning. History casts King Tarquinius Superbus as a cartoon villain, but the archaic smile of Etruscan art reflects a more calculated regime. Tarquin was a state builder who aggressively transformed a collection of mud hut settlements into a regional economic superpower. The evidence of his ambition remains in the physical core of Rome. He completed the Cloaca Maxima, the massive masonry arch of the city's drainage system, and the Temple of Jupiter, projects that required a level of centralized engineering Rome wouldn't see again for centuries. The success of this massive state machine depended entirely on one factor: a stable line of succession. Tarquin's primary strategic liability was his son, Sextus, a man whose impulsive, erratic behavior posed a direct threat to the dynasty's survival. When Sextus assaulted the noblewoman Lucretia, he destroyed the myth that the royal family sat above human passions. Lucretia's death gave the king's own nephew, Brutus, the political leverage to lead a coup and invent the concept of a republic. The absolute state's ultimate vulnerability lies within its own palace walls. It is a system designed to withstand external armies, yet it can be dismantled by the single, uncalculated impulse of a royal heir. In an alternate timeline, Tarquin is a true strategist. He understands that power requires a total lack of sentimentality. In this version of 509 BCE, he has spies watching his son's every move. Tarquin intersects Sextus at the military camp before he can ever reach Lucretia. He executes him for treason before the assembled legions, prioritizing the stability of the crown over the survival of his own blood. With Sextus dead, Lucretia lives, and Brutus is deprived of his rebellion. The monarchy's authority is terrified into permanence through this display of ruthless justice. The republic is never born. Eternal power demands the sacrifice of the human for the sake of the system. In this timeline, Tarquin chooses the throne, and the Roman state transforms into a global monolith. This diagram reveals the massive divergence. While our history was bogged down by centuries of civil wars between ambitious senators, the Etruscan monolith avoids these internal distractions, accelerating Rome's growth on a straight, unyielding path. Superpowers like Carthage are not destroyed. They are efficiently integrated as vassal trade nodes. The entire Mediterranean becomes a managed economic zone under the absolute control of the Tarquin dynasty. This ironclad structure leaves no room for religious rebellion. Christianity is crushed in its infancy because the imperial net is too tight to allow messianic movements to spread. The world remains governed by the ancient, bloody mysticism of the Etruscan elite. Order is maintained through the undeciphered laws found on stones like the Cippus Paracenus. It is a world of absolute hierarchy, where the state's will is interpreted only by a tiny caste of diviners and kings. Etruscan society was already built on a foundation of advanced metallurgy and hydraulics far beyond their contemporaries. By removing the bureaucratic friction of a republic and the later spiritual rejection of material science, the monarchy weaponizes this technical advantage, turning the state into a massive, centralized laboratory. By 100 CE, the empire's master metalworkers bridge the gap between simple gears and high-pressure power. They produce the first legionary automata, bronze-armored, steam-driven machines that allow the state to project power without the need for a loyal human middle class. Supported by these tireless machines, the Roman Global Directorate expands across the oceans, colonizing the Americas by the year 1000. This technological utopia has a horrifying price. The concepts of personal liberty or human rights never develop. Society is a rigid caste system where freedom is defined only as the efficiency with which a subject serves the elite. The fasces, the axe bound in rods, remains the ultimate symbol of this philosophy. It teaches that the power of the state is fragile. It relies entirely on the absolute, unshakable myth that the ruler is infallible. Tarquin's failure in our timeline was a failure of the ego. He prioritized his family over the system. To build an eternal empire, a ruler must accept that morality is a luxury reserved for those without a crown. We live in a world of voting, debate, and rights only because a tyrant was once too weak to kill his son. Our entire political reality is the accidental result of a moment of royal mercy. But as we look at the present, that era of freedom looks increasingly like a temporary detour. We are quietly decommissioning the democratic model and returning to the Tarquin model of absolute efficiency. Our new Etruscan diviners are algorithms. Our new caste systems are built through social credit ratings and untouchable corporate dynasties. We are rebuilding the world of 509 BCE, using silicone and data instead of terracotta and bronze. This raises a final question. Is our 2,500-year experiment with freedom finally over? Are we simply returning to humanity's natural, brutal state of absolute order?